And just to bring you this breaking news, we have now heard from Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has confirmed his government has agreed to a ceasefire with Iran. Mr Netanyahu's office claims Israel's Operation Rising Lion has been a tremendous success and has achieved all of its objectives and more. We expect to hear an address from him later today, and of course we'll bring you that. Now, back home, the Prime Minister has reportedly cut the number of staff allocated to the opposition in a, separate domestic story, which will result in the Liberals losing around 20 shadow ministerial staff. They aren't happy, and I'm joined now by the Shadow Special Minister of State, James McGrath. James McGrath, welcome.
Hello.
Before we go to your unhappiness about that, which I think you would agree to is has a different magnitude to what we're seeing in the Middle East. I think everyone would agree on that. Let's just stay on the Middle East. Benjamin Netanyahu saying that this ceasefire has been agreed to. For many hours today we weren't sure, but it seems that he's now confirmed it. Do you welcome it?
Of course the opposition welcomes the ceasefire. The opposition hopes that peace does come to the Middle East, and the opposition hopes that Israel can have a safe existence in the Middle East and that Iran can no longer threaten Israel with either ballistic missiles, but in particular with a nuclear enrichment program.
Without the details, though, of exactly what the deal with Iran might be in the future, are we really in safe territory yet?
I don't know if I can comment on that, as you point out, without knowing what those details are. But the opposition certainly welcomes this ceasefire. It's a short-term ceasefire, and we hope this ceasefire does lead to a long-standing peace agreement between Israel and Iran.
I want to take you to the other story, which I said was less significant. Apologies for that, but I think it's fair. You're not happy with the staff allocation that Labor has dished out, essentially, has briefed you on. But in fact, I've confirmed they're also getting staff cut to their side of politics. So isn't it just the way the cookie crumbles, so to speak? Like there's a new configuration and Labor too will lose staff?
It's a long-standing convention in Australia, it's been decades long, that the opposition of the day, regardless of their political colour, has 21% of the staff that have been allocated to the government. It is bipartisan, it has worked. And what we've seen today is that the Prime Minister, and it is a personal decision of the Prime Minister, in a mood that we can only describe as being petty and vindictive, has cut the opposition staff by about 20. Now, yes, it may be true that the government has cut or reduced their total number of staff, but they have not reduced it by the same proportion. So what we're seeing today in Australia, with a Labor Party who does have, let's face it, a supermajority in the House of Reps and also a working majority in the Senate with the Greens political party, we are seeing a Labor Party who have cut resources to the opposition. Now, regardless of the political colours of your viewers, I think everyone would agree it is important in a parliamentary democracy that the opposition, regardless of their colour, does have sufficient resources in order to hold the government to account.
So you'll have about 80 staff, is that right?
We will have about 80 staff, and the government will have about, I think, 480, 490 staff.
Okay. Let me just drill into that. They also have a whopping majority, and you were kind of decimated at the last election. So there is quite a big difference in your numbers, isn't there?
In relation to the staff that go towards the opposition for the purposes of the shadow cabinet, that does not change regardless of the majority that the government hold over the opposition. If you accepted that argument, then John Howard could have certainly reduced the number of staff that the opposition would have received in 1996, or Kevin Rudd could have done that in 2007, or Tony Abbott in 2013. The work of the Shadow Cabinet and the broader Shadow Ministry continues regardless of the size of the opposition party room in Parliament. And indeed, you would say it is even more important that the opposition does have sufficient resources to hold the government to account where the government does have such a large majority over the opposition parties. Now, my concern is that it is important that the government is held to account, and the opposition, we will continue with resourcing that we have to work 7 days a week.
So do you think with 80 staff you can't hold the government to account? Is that what you reckon?
No, I am not saying that at all.
Okay.
What I am saying is that the Prime Minister, in a personal, petty, vindictive decision, has stripped staff away from the opposition, and it will make it harder for the entire opposition to do their job because we will have fewer resources. That goes without saying. But what it shows is the arrogance of this government, who do have a large majority, that they think that they are beyond transparency and beyond accountability. I remind your viewers that Prime Minister Albanese, before the 2022 election, said he would lead the most transparent and accountable government ever. Well, I would put it to you, PK, that by stripping positions away from the opposition is not the decisions or the thought process of someone who believes in transparency and accountability. We would ask that the Prime Minister reflect upon this and reflect upon the commitments he made to the Australian people before the 2022 election.
Just a final question on another issue. Treasurer Jim Chalmers will invite Ted O'Brien, who's your shadow treasurer, of course, to the government's productivity roundtable in August. Are you pleased to hear that, and are you willing to work with the government on tax reform and productivity?
The opposition will always work with the government on areas where we believe we can improve the Australian economy, and I'm sure Shadow Treasurer Ted O'Brien will take up the Treasurer's offer to participate in the roundtable. So yes, as a constructive opposition, regardless of the cuts that the government has made to our staffing, we will want to work with the government so we can help reform Australia and improve Australia's productivity.
That's an interesting point. James McGrath, always great to speak to you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.